Hey folks, the Desert Artist here. I am finishing up my friend's vest. I have got it all sewn together. As you can see, I just did a basic straight line stitch. Now remember that straight line provides for no stretch. Okay, that means it's going to be tight, like around the belt line of your pants. Now if I wanted this to be stretchable, I could have done it that way. I would have had to probably, well, there's multiple ways you can do it depending on the way that you want it to look. Generally the easiest way would be to do a baseball stitch, would be like a spiral and then spiral it back, and that would give some more flexibility and a little bit of ability to stretch while holding it all together. I like this pattern because I can go over it with the wallet stitch. It looks a lot better, I think, with that raised type braiding across there. Let me show you what it looks like so far. Now remember I said that when I was cutting it out, I may be cutting it a little small in the sides here. Well, I did. I ended up having to put in a dart here, a rather large dart. I was quite off on the shirt. So that's something to take into account when you're making stuff, is you're going to have your overlay of your stitches, which is generally going to be about an inch, and or more depending on what type of stitch you'll be using. And of course you won't know that when you're cutting it out unless you have it pre-planned. So here we are, we've got it, I've got all the holes punched out, and yes, I did punch all of those holes out individually, one at a time. And no, I did not measure it out. I just went with whatever it looked like was the even space all the way around. It does look like I got it pretty good all the way around, and at every stitch point I did it. So that means that the whole vest will be completed with this wallet stitch braid. And what I'm going to do now, because I've already gotten this part done, is I am going to do this part here. Well, it seems that I have not punched the holes here yet. So I'm going to go ahead and punch these last holes, and you're going to get the enjoyment of watching me do it. And this is just a block of nylon. You can use whatever kind of a decent plastic there is to use, but you won't be able to use it afterwards because it'll be filled with little bitty holes all over the top there, that if you use it as a cutting block or whatever, then, well, it depends on how hard you hit the little hole punch on how far down it's going to go. Generally it only takes me one swack with a hammer, and I'm going to have to push all this gear bob stuff out of the way here. I'm kind of pressed to get this done before Christmas. Now this is what I use. It's just like a plastic hammer. I've got a rawhide one around here somewhere, but I've got about 12 hammers that I use. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to time lapse this so you can kind of see how it's done. Alright, now that we've got that done, we are going to go ahead and start with the one line braid here. And I happen to have some lace that I cut out from the pig skin, and I'll show you how to do that later. To do this particular braid, you're not going to want to pull too much leather through all these holes. So the length that you're going to want is the length of your fringe plus about 6 lengths of the distance in which you're working, because you'll be chewing up a lot of leather doing this braid. Now remember, it's always better to go a little long than a little short. You're going to have one piece of fringe at the end of each one of these braids. This is a long knitting needle that I cut in half, and then I pounded it flat, and I was able to, once I pounded it flat, I drilled a hole into it so I can use it for lacing, and then I sharpened up the end into a little needle point. In case you're wondering what I use to punch my holes here in the leather, is I use this. It's an old ice pick that I've sharpened the edges down on, so they make little knife blades, and from there I am able to punch 6 holes all at once. It makes for a quick way to punch all your holes in here and then stitch together. I mean, in combined time, you're as fast as a sewing machine if you're really good. So let's start with this braid here. Now we're going to start with actually two lines down, 2 holes down from the top. Okay, so we're going to start from 2 holes down on the top. Now what I like to do in this beginning part, because I don't want to have to pull all that leather all the way through there, is I can do this in reverse and then have the tail end sticking out here. This is going to be your fringe end. Now make sure that you got your suede and your suede, or your hide and hide, you know, coming out equal on both sides here, because when you go ahead and stitch this, you don't want it to be tight, because making it tight will give it an elasticity, which means it'll scrunch up, and then it will bend and deform. So here we are starting out with this here. Now we're going to go cut across this here and this here. Now when we do this braid here, we're going to want to intertwine those together so we make a really good ball of pretty looking leather right there. It'll hold it all together nicely. So we're going to go ahead and go through. Once again, you want to make sure that your leather is straight so that when you pull it through, it looks like a nice roll of leather. Now we want to bring this underneath this here, like that. Okay, so when it comes out, it will hang out on the top. This goes over the top here. It goes into this hole and out of this hole. Once again, you don't want to pull it tight. You want to pull it taut, pull on the back, and make sure it lays nice and flat. Then we want to come up here, and we want to go into this little crease right here on the top. See where that's at? Where we folded that one up? We want to go underneath that and go all the way through like this. Okay. Once again, we got a good nice roll of leather there, so it'll pull up nice. You don't have to use enough of the leather lay down color, so to speak. Oh no, that's looking pretty scary. I think I might be short on lace a little bit. Well, I don't know. We're going to go ahead and keep going and see what it looks like. Looks like we're going to be short. Okay, well, I'm going to show you how to fix that. See, it's a little tight, a little twisted. I don't think that's going to work very well. So I'm going to have to untie this here. And I'm going to back it up a notch. That way I don't have any stretch on it at all. And I got plenty to work with, and I've got enough leather. It's not like I have to skimp on it at all. Alright, so now we go back here to the inside and we pull out your bitter end. Make sure our standing part's looking good. Uh-oh. I'm looking a little scared. Looks like it might not have been enough. I don't think there's enough there to do it, because I should have had that much for fringe. I'm going to have to use that other longer piece. See how quickly that braid chews up leather? I got a longer piece this time. Let's see if this works. Right there it is. The thing that always impeded me when I was younger was I always tried to make everything as quick as I could. That meant that I was being efficient, quick and efficient. At least that's what I was always taught. But when I started doing leather work, I found out that you have to take your time in order to do something well. And if you don't take your time to do something well, it won't turn out well. It will turn out like you were in a hurry. So it's a nice thing about leather work is it gives you time to spend with God and do something mindless that can turn out beautiful. That, my friends, is how you do a 4-strand single line braid. One piece of fringe on the top, one piece of fringe on the bottom, and I'm going to leave that there until it is done, because you never know when that little piece of leather might come in handy for doing something down here. Yet you don't know it yet because you haven't done all around the edge yet. Now I got to do that 4-strand rope braid all around the edge, and it's the same way to do it here, except you've only got to go through one piece of leather. So instead of going in and out right here, you just go in and out of the hole and keep going all the way around. Now I've got this piece of leather here, and I got this pair of scissors here, and I'm going to show you this piece of leather. I'm going to cut it up into lacing to see how much I can get out of it. It's not that I'm trying to be fruitful or anything, but I want to show you all how I cut my lacing, because I cut it all by hand with a pair of scissors, no fancy tool or nothing. So I just find a good spot to start out here. And I'm eventually going to cut this off because it's going to be too sharp of a turn here to be reliable enough for lacing. So I'm just going to go right in here and I'm going to start cutting. And it's funny when you're cutting because I always try to cut the corners, because when it stretches right in here, it becomes, you got that little loose part there that you can always cut off. So cutting the corners is always a good thing. You want to try to maintain your finish width to be the same all the way around, with the exception of the corners, because you can go back after you have cut your lacing and trim the corners off. But where it's smooth and straight like this, you want to go ahead and be able to stay right within it. Even if you have some scuff marks like these here, they will not impede your final leather product very much. Now you can see as I'm coming up on this corner here how it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cut the corner until I get back to the point where I'm close to being the right width for the lacing. And then I come up to my other corner here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut it wide. Now that was an inside curve, and I kind of went wide just before it. and see if I can. No, I'm going to go ahead and cut it short. I don't want to risk it. And then I'm going to cut it again to get another 6-foot piece.